My name's Chris.
And I'm a little bit hungover.
She is too. This is the Washing Up podcast, and that little bit of laughter and chuckling that you hear is us catching up on something. So we have some unfinished business from earlier this season to get to. Elena, how are we?
I'm very, very good, thank you. I promise I'm laughing with you, not at you. Kristie?
You can laugh at me. It's self-inflicted.
The commentary on
Self-inflicted.
last night was wonderful.
It was great. We went out to drag and dine at the Impy at Erskineville in Miscellaneous City, and there was a lot of good cocktails, and I still didn't get through all the ones I wanted to, so I've got to go back.
What a shame. That sounds like a horrible task.
Oh, but the food was phenomenal. Like,
Oh, excellent.
just have to I wasn't expecting much because, it's a pub. But went in and, oh, my God, like kingfish ceviche.
Where was your kingfish? On your table?
It was on my table. And this braised beef that was the most perfect combination of slow-cooked, when the fat's rendered down and it's
Oh, yeah.
caramel.
My favourite.
Yeah, and then they crisp the outside. Oh, my God.
Oh, yes. Nothing like a twice-cooked soft insides and crunchy sort of bark on the outside.
You did that and I went to time zone. Anyway, so... Not joking. So we said it's a bit of unfinished business. Now we've mentioned this on Twitter, but I do need just to prove to the audience.
Yeah.
Now, when you were supposed to be on,
Yes.
something got in the way. Do you want to tell everyone what that was?
I was in labour, actually. I couldn't have timed it better. I'm only on one episode out of 60-something all season, and the day it's airing is when I'm in my second day of labour. I managed to make it 3 days just for fun, and I possibly could have spoken to you guys, but it was a bit risky. It was a bit risky.
We suggested it. We could have had the greatest podcast in the history of mankind. It would have been
We should have Facebook Lived it.
Yeah, exactly.
Screw the privacy.
But no, it was really funny. We had planned this weeks ahead and jokingly said, you watch, the day we're going to do this is the day you're going to be in labour. Yeah, sure. And I sent a message in the afternoon and the response I got back was, in labour.
And I don't mean the political party.
So we need to start with...
Although if you went into politics, I think you'd do very well.
I've had a little bit of media training since my time at Masterchef. I'm sure I can sit on the fence really well.
Minister for the Arts. Anyway, so your episode.
Yes.
How much of it do you remember?
I actually had watched it recently again. So I followed on Twitter in rather than watching the episode live because I was unable, but I followed little bits and pieces. So I was certainly interested to see what was included and what wasn't. And then have caught up again on it recently, which was wonderful. And I wish they had actually shown a little bit more of what my team had done because I was so incredibly proud of them. I thought they did an awesome job.
So what's that like coming back and doing the mentoring thing for a team challenge as opposed to being in the middle of the team challenge?
It's interesting. There's definitely, it felt more falling into my role as a teacher rather than a competition. And I also sort of was able to step away from the competition in such as it's not life or death. You guys will all survive. It didn't feel quite so dramatic as that.
I'm going home for relax. I'm not going home because I lost.
Yes. But also in being able to instill that in them, trying to give them a little bit of perspective. Like it feels like the whole world in this moment, but enjoy it as well because it's it's not quite life or death as some people would have us feel. No specific producers will I name, but yes.
I did love though that it was this beautiful kind of like homecoming for you as well, like being there in Noosa and you being able to, so what was that like?
That was fantastic. So because I don't know if it was mentioned in the episode, I can't actually remember this, but that was the weekend there was a cyclone in Noosa, and so we all thought that we didn't know where it was going to be filmed in the end, but to be at the Noosa Surf Club was hilarious because it's probably where I had one of my first legal drinks or even underage drinks. I don't know. But it's only about 200 meters walk from where my dad lives. My nan used to live at the top of the hill, so you'd walk down through the national park, and that's sort of the first spot that you'd find, and about 5 minutes from where my mum lives. So in terms of it feeling like I got to share something of mine with everyone there, because I know everyone goes to Noosa these days, but like my family has been there since the 70s, so I feel a little bit like they're all visiting what I've been telling them about, if that makes sense.
Yes, they're Noosa hipsters, you know, they were there.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, when there was a caravan park in Hastings Street, and they were, yeah.
And I mean, luckily, you know, given it was the week of the cyclone, that it was like 200 meters away from where you grew up, and not like 1.2 kilometers away from where you grew up, like.
Yes, exactly.
In a floating restaurant.
Well, the only floating restaurant, just so you know, my dad helped build in Noosa. Like, there's all of those kind of crazy links the whole way through. Yeah, and even like Matt Preston asked me, it didn't make the edit, but what sports did I play? Was I a nipper? Was I this? Was I that? And I said, well, actually, I played basketball. What was the team called? Oh, the Noosa Cyclones.
Yes,
of course it was the Noosa Cyclones.
I was a basketballer as well.
Too much fun.
What position did you play?
Centre, although not very aggressively. I was, as with most things, I'm not hugely competitive. So yeah, people really my coaches definitely were like, you know, if you jump, you can get actually even further than you're already height. So
I'm good.
Yes.
I don't know if you can hear little Jonathan. If he squeaks again, I'll give him to Dad.
That's all right. Welcome to the podcast.
The audience is enjoying having the youngest ever contributor. That's great. So obviously that challenge was interesting, and again, they also pitted you against Matt again because
yes.
because they haven't done that before. That's never been a thing. Did you sort of did you kind of lean over at one point and just sort of whisper, Heston Blumenthal? Because I would have.
I was really trying not to let it shake me so that it didn't shake my teammates. I didn't want them to take on any beef that may have been tried to be instilled in us beforehand. Like, I didn't want them to feel like it was a fight that they had to take on my behalf.
Of them, because I would have been like, we're going in there, we're gonna fucking smash them.
I don't know if you're aware last
Sorry,
time.
Jonathan.
I don't know if you're aware last time about what happened when we went face to face, but
I sort of I actually wanted to inspire them in terms of having good food.
Yeah.
So I had my family and my friends in the crowd. I'm just going to pass little baby Jonathan to Dad because he's just waking up.
All right, we're back. We just background minutes passed off.
Hey.
So,
and anyone that's like a nursing mother is like lactating.
The amount of lactation.
Yeah, sometimes it's just a look. Where is he? Oh, there he is. Oh, bugger.
That's all they need. But no, I like the fact that it was about the quality of food. Like
yeah, so I had my dad, my uncle, my auntie, some friends from high school, some of my dad's friends. I had a whole heap of local support in the crowd, and I definitely wanted that to inspire my team as opposed to, as again, life or death. We wanted to serve up delicious food and celebrate Noosa because that to me is more important than the win or loss.
Yeah.
And so I think that they did that splendidly.
Well, that's the thing too, and that was sort of leads us nicely into sort of current day. So we rewatched your grand final quite recently, maybe like yesterday. But we rewatched it, and we watched a large part of that series again. And one of the things that did in the first place sort of draw us towards you was that celebration of like good quality food and good quality produce and making the best use out of it.
It probably was very boring for producers that I was excited just to be there rather than fight for my place.
Food.
But that was definitely not only survival, but that was a part of if I'm here and I'm learning and I'm growing and I want to have longevity in this industry, or as it turns out, a combination of industries.
Yes.
It's that's what I'm there for. I'm not there to give moments of jeopardy, unfortunately.
Like, I don't know if we're an anomaly with audience members, but, you know, us and a lot of the friends of ours on Twitter really appreciate it when you have those like group challenges or whatever where everyone does well, and it really is down to the judges going, well, which one of these two dishes would I want to go back and eat again? Like, it comes to, you know, the best versus the best, and like seeing people take risks and them paying off, and even appreciating people who take risks.
Absolutely.
And it may be not working, and that's why there's a disaster. Like, I think it's better to try, you know, aim for the moon, and if you miss, you get the stars or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was one thing that my team that day did really well. There was a little bit of confusion in the what the menu would look like, and so we wanted to gain clarity around if there was a theme or a connection between all of the dishes to make sure. And I think so that was definitely one thing that they adapted to and rose to the challenge. And then there was, I think Steph did her dish that day, like I can still taste it, the eggplant sort of salad with pickled and warmed, and that was just incredible, and that was one of the most surprising things to me. But she also looked probably the most lost at one point through it, and she figured out a way to rise to it, to figure out how to make it tasty, to figure out how to connect it with everyone else's dishes. And it was as I said, it's probably one of the most memorable things that I tasted, because it was innovative, because it was clever, because it was different and surprising, and it was exciting.
Absolutely. And it came across that, you know, the way you facilitated their cooking that day was really about, you know, not even pushing them, but guiding them to do their best, like to explore their own.
Think about exploring flavors. Think about exploring, you know, something a bit different that you've always wanted to try.
Think about exploring eggplant emojis.
So, of course you go there. But think about exploring like different flavors and things that would celebrate the ingredients. It sort of brings us, in some ways, to. I'm going to bring up this challenge because it's caused so much consternation online, and I really sort of want to get what you would have done with this sort of concept. So the 75 minutes they got the other night.
No, they chose.
That's what I'm saying. So again, they get a free choice of time, and they can cook whatever they want. And for some reason, they settled on 75 minutes, which
do you think that
George Barris looked angry with them? A short amount. He's like, "What do you mean 75 minutes?" And then the fact that only one person, the person who actually came up with the concept, got all of their elements on the plate, and everyone else was like, "We're stupid. Why did we say 75 minutes?" What sort of time frame
did a Jedi mind trick on them?
What sort of time frame would you have sort of pushed for, or what would you have cooked?
I can relate to this on quite a few different levels. So I suspect that there may have been something else going on out, like either before that day, or they may have sort of had a little bit of the weight or the gravity of the situation sort of brought down upon them a little bit, because they all looked a little bit frazzled or out of their, not quite in their comfort zones. When I sort of looked at all of their faces, I'm like, oh, you don't look quite where you usually are.
Yeah. So
I think that sort of possibly wouldn't have helped no matter the time, whether it was earlier, longer or shorter. I think that there was something else playing games there.
Is there also possibly a bit of Stockholm syndrome with the time? You get so used to having 60, 75 minutes, and
you know what you can do in that time, and then the halfway mark sort of frazzles you a little bit. And then the other thing I can relate to is, even if one person suggested a time, I was already thinking about what I could do in that amount of time, rather than arguing with anybody else. So if someone suggested 90 minutes, I would have gone, yep, sure, I can do that, and I'll work with that. I wasn't interested in fighting for a rule to be changed in my favor. I was already thinking about what I was going to be able to do in that time. So other people may have actually wanted different times. Whilst it appears that everyone...
If Tessa had her time over, I think thinking about doing a roast chicken, she probably would have wanted
90
more
minutes.
than 75.
Yeah, absolutely. And you sort of go, okay, no, it's the challenge that's been set. I can work with it. And if everyone else is happy to do that, I'm not going to fight them on it. So that was one thing. And then there was something else I was thinking of. Oh, yeah, in terms of none of them, 4 out of 5 not getting things on the plate. I haven't seen them do that. I have not seen that many people do that in one thing. The first time I left something off the plate, and hilariously it was also chicken crackling for a chicken I was cooking, was for Marco PIY. It was our first or second week in the thing, and I never did it again. I never allowed myself to finish in that last 10 seconds again. I didn't like the feeling. I didn't like the pressure it caused me. So I always tried to finish 5 minutes early and have 2 plates plated up with enough elements so that I never left anything off. So for them to get to this far, I was more concerned for their welfare rather than what the food was on the plate.
It's happened a lot this series, and like I said, I'm a bit concerned for them in terms of there's been a lot this season of people leaving elements off the plate. And a large reason for that, I think, has come down to, and this is my just hypothesizing, the judges this season more than ever have been penalising people for putting an element on that's not 100% right, rather than if you just don't put it on there, which has become a bit of an issue with people at home because they're going, so what if you don't cook something properly and you leave it off and so your dish is missing a key ingredient, that's better than it being there but not being 100%. And I think in their minds that might be what sort of threw them all for that challenge was...
Yeah, what do I leave off? What do I put on? Yeah.
I've also been thinking about this week because Thursday night we didn't have an episode of Masterchef.
No, we didn't.
Because we had that awesome Adam Goods documentary. And don't get me wrong, I think that was brilliant.
Yes.
That's brilliant. But
yes, it's something that I'll catch up on. But yeah, it's when people don't know, I can understand why audiences revolt.
But I think that means that we've now missed the pretty awesome night where we see the judges cook. You know, the reverse.
No, it's Sunday.
Is it Sunday?
That's the masterclass.
I was wondering whether we were going to miss that too, because that's one of my. It might not be as entertaining for audiences, but as a contestant, that is so absolutely necessary in terms of.
The audiences enjoy that one, but
good.
I worry about, because of the way the episodes have been timed out, we've still got 5 people, and we have 3 nights, and this is going to be chaotic.
Quite packed full.
And we've got on Sunday night, there's 1 person going home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Then there's a masterclass, which I'm assuming will be the contestant
that episode.
Judges. Then on Monday night, they have to lose 2 people.
Yeah.
That's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be as fun for people with the masterclass, because what I've actually heard, and it's really disappointing because we love the masterclasses because they're really good and really entertaining. But and I think it allows everyone to feel like themselves after such a long time in competition. You get to actually relax a little bit because there's, first of all, no consequences. The judges let their guard down a little bit, and it is a lot of fun where you can laugh at yourselves and each other, even though the contestants usually win because we're running a marathon at that point and the judges have just come in for the day. But it is so much fun. So I hope that it's, I don't know how they're going to do it. Maybe the finale is a little different this year. That could be fun.
It is.
And I don't know because I wasn't, I was very late in my pregnancy.
I'm going with a 5-person finale. Because remember, we had finals week last week where 1 person went home.
That's right.
That was finals week. 1 person went home. I'm like, can we stop with that, please? Just if it's finals week, maybe actually make it the final.
Yes.
It's finals week, and now it's grand final week.
We're going into
towards the final week.
Final. Bonus final.
It's kind of like John Farnham's
retirement tours.
Final eve. Pre-finals.
The pre-final eve reverse tour.
But something I just thought of then is like with this, like the judges getting involved and having that kind of fun time in the kitchen. It's an element of Bake Off that's coming in where you have the host who are specifically there to reduce and relieve tension and kind of
yes,
poke up the spirits and bring up the morale and do some what's that? Not palliative care. You know what I'm talking about? Pastoral care.
Yeah.
There we go.
yes, absolutely.
For the contestants, and I really feel, because you said Masterchef is a marathon. Just when you think it's over, it keeps going. I can't imagine like how intense that is and how helpful
it's incredibly helpful, because you sort of you almost take it a little bit too seriously at that point. You know how close you are. Everyone is talking, asking you, how would it feel if, and it's there is a lot of weight on you to try and wade your way through and just focus on what the task is. So for all of that to be broken down, and it is kind of because you're in that mindset of competition, it's a surprise when it happens. You're not expecting, even though you've seen previous seasons, you don't know what the challenge is that you're heading in there for. And it just, it's just a massive weight off. I think I can even remember that feeling of standing taller, because you're not, your posture isn't slumped into that sort of, oh, what are we up to now? What is it?
Well,
yeah, you sort of.
Well, you and Matt even got like the footballers montage before your grand final. Like, rewatching it was the thing I forgot, was that they got the two of you in and filmed like a footballers montage of you.
That was so much fun to film.
And looking at the clock. And I'd like to think they didn't do slow motion footage. They just got you guys to work in slow mo.
There was a little bit of magic in the edit of that day, or in the filming and edit of that day.
Incredible.
That was so much fun. Well, that was actually like the judges' day, where you get to let your guard down and have fun with it. Like, it was just a handful of us filming a great montage and being as dramatic as we possibly could be.
Break through the banner as you come into the kitchen.
Out of the light. It was a bit of a like a Blues Brothers,
like the openers.
Yes. 100%. So
yeah.
So that lead into a grand final, like that night before, not to be all cliche, but how well do you sleep the night before a grand final?
The last 2 weeks of filming, I didn't sleep more than 2 hours a night.
Wow. That's got to lead to some great hallucinations.
That makes it easy to make a Heston Blumenthal dessert, in all honesty.
Absolutely.
Your thing, Heston.
Yeah, well, the week when I got home, I think I slept maybe 18 hours a day. I was a potato. It was the absolute opposite. So it's very much adrenaline filled, and then the day after you've finished filming, I think I got to a bed at 3 a.m. and my interview started at 6 a.m. the next day.
Ouch, that's got to
So
hurt.
then you have to make sense of it all.
Well done. Now, I'm assuming that you make that egg all the time now. It's
all the time, every weekend.
Every weekend.
I have people come over. Yeah, I only make one, because it's definitely not too indulgent to get all of those millions of ingredients just to make a single egg.
What I think is hilarious is like, you see that one person making it, of course it's going to be fucking intense, but Heston has a whole staff.
It's a staff.
Like just one person dedicated to the show.
Oh yes.
Which brings us back to this most recent group. The challenge the other night at Press Club.
Yes.
So I think and I wanted to talk to you about this in particular because, it's the idea of relating the difference between MasterChef and a real kitchen.
Yes.
Because we talked about this earlier this year. We talked about this when they had them memorize a dish and then jump in a cab, race across town and have to remember it.
Oh, yes.
I'm like, because that's such a realistic thing that happens in the world of memorize a dish and drive across town. The idea of you've got this one course and now you have to prep this whole thing and you've got 3 hours. Go.
It is unrealistic. I can see both sides of the coin. Some things that MasterChef puts, the pressure that it puts you under, prepares you more than what you need to in a professional kitchen, where you have weeks of prep, days of prep, hours of prep before you are producing potentially one element. But what it doesn't necessarily prepare you for is is service and the hours upon hours that you are under that pressure for. So I can see where professional chefs who have come up through the ranks can say, oh, MasterChef doesn't do what we did, and I can also say, but yes, we might know things that you also don't know. So it's sort of a bit of both.
I felt really sorry for Tim because, like, Tim had to spend half an hour peeling potatoes.
Oh my goodness!
And George is
that is the worst.
George is like, "Why are you taking so long?" And I'm like, "He's just peeled a bunch of potatoes and chopped all his onions by himself."
Yes. He doesn't have like a first-year apprentice sitting there.
Yes.
Which of those?
And there is nothing more frustrating than being at the beginning stages of something like that when you know how much is ahead of you, but you just have to keep peeling. Like, you can't actually do anything else, and you've only got the two hands. So I remember feeling the same way when I was peeling my eggs in the semi-final. I'm like, how many are there to go? I didn't know eggshells could splinter. I had eggshell splinters in my hands for a week afterwards.
Oh my God.
It was just, it was one of those things that you kind of, I can't get through them fast enough, even though I'm going as fast as I can.
Not walking on eggshells, you're like
wearing them on your hands. So, of all of those courses, which one would you have wanted?
To cook myself?
Yeah.
I think I probably would have taken Larissa's as well, the sort of in between. I kind of like the idea of a challenge to be a palate cleanser, interesting but also just a transition as well. So I quite like that challenge. In terms of what I would have wanted to eat, I think Tess's and Tim's probably appealed to me the most in terms of wanting to eat.
Yeah, they looked like they would have been really delicious. My other thing with that was that, those sort of set menus are supposed to have a bit more of a rhyme and reason to it. And I'm like, how is this going to work when they're all independent?
I was wondering the same,
I'm like, this doesn't have a flow to it. Like, they've all made their individual dishes, and the only one with any real planning is Larissa, who's got to sit down and go, I know exactly what I'm doing.
That part is definitely hard. We had the same kind of go in and see it when you get there and work with that with Curtis Stone, and we were in pairs. But you sort of had to kind of try to relate it to the one before you and not set up the following course for failure. But it's a massive challenge to try and have some cohesion there.
Yes, you don't want Osher Gunsberg accusing you the next day of sabotaging.
Yes, I've been meaning to talk to him about that. He said a couple, and he also said Matt was my favourite. I wanted him to win. I'm like, oh, come on, give me a break.
Hi. I'm over here. But
I'm like, I know he has to be someone's favourite, but if you could not tell national radio, so
that would be good. Well, all you need to do is just when the next series of The Bachelor happens, just sort of hide in the back of one of the cars, and like when the girls all walk up, just sort of duck around the back and go, "Hi, Osher." Anyway,
see, for me,
have a chat.
For me, when I hear things like that, I really feel that it's the subconscious biases in our society coming through.
Yeah.
It's also like this expectation of Simon and Tim to obviously do well because they fit what society places more value on. So I think it's something that we all need to be aware of when we're watching these shows, is that we don't undervalue particularly middle-aged older women and women of colour who basically, and our society does place value judgments on people and makes assumptions.
Absolutely. It's and I think that if I had pointed it out, because I've read Osher's book and I follow his podcast, and there's a lot of things that I'm sure he wouldn't have been thrilled about in that interview, and in such a short interview, he would hate to think that it had the impact that it did.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things that I only learned on the go, but I would definitely pass on to other people to sort of,
think about what you say. Exactly.
Also think about the wider context and how we can change in society. Like it's well known that in particularly cooking and in the chefing world, is that women are always described as having a homely touch and do good old fashioned cooking And, you know, that's I call it the nonna effect, you know,
Yes.
like every woman
Yeah.
is a nonna, even if like you've chosen not to have children and are 60 years old or no, 20 years old, blah, blah, blah. Whereas men are always seen to have been like sophisticated and cutting edge and
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even it's the same word can be used to describe male and female, and it has a completely different effect. Matt and I were both emotional.
Yep.
Matt was celebrated for being emotional. I was told, I don't know how you're going to survive. You're so emotional. Like
Well,
it's
we've had this series as well, though, when we've seen it in recently with a couple of the female contestants and some of the online feedback of, she's this one here or that one here. I'm not using any names because there's been a few of them. She's so bossy in that kitchen.
She's an absolute bitch.
She's such a bitch. And I'm like, if a male says the same things in terms of driving on team challenges.
What a clever leader.
Leadership, it's strong and in command and in control.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a case of it's circumstances. So one of the team challenges the other day, one of the members of the team wasn't doing what they were supposed to do. The female who was in charge of the team was like, what are you doing? That needs to be done. Yeah. We're way behind. You need to get this done, and you need to get this done now. And so I can't believe she's being such a bossy bitch to this other. I'm like, no, it's a challenge. If it was a male, I was like, look at the strong leadership that takes place.
Yeah, and if it was a male stopping their course to go and help the female, there would have been a lot of, oh, look at him, he's such a good bloke, you know, blah, blah, blah. When a woman does it, it's overlooked and all that's on.
She's left her station.
Yeah, she's left her station.
Yes.
She's being, it's irresponsible. It's so frustrating, and I think there needs to be more discourse about it so that we start challenging those views.
And I think the majority of people are happy to have that discourse, which I'm pleased about. That is definitely a massive step forward. Most people are happy to learn and to grow and to kind of go, oh my goodness, I didn't know that about myself. I know there's a handful that will not wish to budge, and I don't necessarily wish to try to budge them. That's not worth my time.
It's been because we have seen, as I said, some of that this year. But what I will say with the online community, we've talked about this in every season of Masterchef we've done about the toxicity of the online community and how it can be. What I've actually found this year, by and large, is that it's been a little bit more welcoming this year. And the online community has been a lot less
vicious at
contestants. And
yes, I was pleased to see that as a general rule as well. Yeah.
What we've seen in our feedback from people is people are smartening up. They're not so much getting angry at contestants. They're not very happy with the way people are being edited, or they're not very happy with the positions that people are being put in situations, or the way that they're being represented. And I
don't think audiences like to be made to feel dumb either.
Yeah,
I think So if something is looking a little too, dare I say it, formulaic or predictable, or
contrived.
And it's where the audience, like the audience, for example, this year on online and Twitter, and it's the most obvious example we've got, is picked up Ben and Waleed early on.
Yes.
And the reason they picked up Ben and Waleed was because they were getting zero screen time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, Ben commented when we had him on the podcast the other week when he was talking about one of the team challenges, and he said, you know, you've got no airtime. And he said, yes, I was amazed that salad that made itself. It was incredible. I did nothing in that challenge. But
even in the team challenge that he was in with me, I don't think you really see Christina or Ben in the challenge.
You don't.
And they did a massive effort, and we had quite a few conversations.
Waleed, because he was team captain on the other side, and he was always with Matt, like yelling at him. And so that was the only reason you saw Paul Waleed. So it was a case of the audience, I think, this year has been a lot more sophisticated with the way they've handled the show.
I think it's
and I wonder if that's partly due to shows like Unreal showing you some behind the scenes producing kinds of trickery is not necessarily a positive word, but in terms of how you get a show to run, I think that maybe things like that people are cottoning on to, especially with the amount of reality TV shows and the amount of contestants. Almost everyone would know someone who's on a show and would be able to sort of say, well, I wasn't quite like that.
And we saw people like Leah this year too, who, we talked about this with Callan the other year, and we talked about this we're now in a generation where the younger members coming onto the show are coming onto this show knowing MasterChef inside out, knowing the formula inside out, and knowing the way it all works. And they're not necessarily coming through as, I'm a home cook, why don't I just apply for this? There are people that have grown up now watching MasterChef, learning it and learning how to approach it. So they're approaching it in a far more TV show way than just going on cooking.
Yes,
not that they don't have that passion, but they think differently to people that are, say, a bit older, like maybe someone like an Anushka or a Waleed or one of those coming on. It's a very different process, I think, for someone like Aaliyah going on the show.
Yes, absolutely. You sort of, not that there's always rules, but you can see a handful of things that the judges do and don't like. You can easily not serve up A, B, and C, and as you know, it goes in trends year to year. What they're fed up with seeing, especially on trend things. What was that? Sorry.
Pork belly is always in style.
Exactly. You know that everyone loves crackling. Like that. This is.
So the first 2 weeks, you crackling.
Crackling ice cream, crackling parfait, crackling panna cotta.
Now this year,
that
brings on something that's really it's interesting in the way we've talked about this idea of food trends and how the food trends change and what is in. And this year there are 2.
Have you seen my matcha recipe on my Market Kitchen yet that I mentioned you, Chris?
Oh, I've been looking for. I haven't seen it yet. I've been watching my Market Kitchen. We're going to come to my Market Kitchen and talk about it because
I specifically said this isn't for my friend Chris.
I haven't seen it yet,
but everyone else, you go and enjoy it.
I'm waiting for it. But we'll talk about that in a minute because it's got me through my holidays. But. In terms of food trends and the way that food trends have run, so this year we've seen 3 really. So obviously panna cotta has taken over from the parfait.
It's come back.
And the ice cream.
Yes. They're bringing it back.
I know.
What was old is new again.
Yes.
It's vintage. It's retro.
Beetroot molasses went quite well, and suddenly it happened for 3 weeks in a row.
And now it's the fish and butter sauce.
So as food trends go, it feels like, but it also feels like what used to happen more with MasterChef was the food trend would be the first half of the series.
Yeah.
And then the second half of the series, people start to break out and take challenges. And I've sort of suggested I've suggested it a few times now, that the show this year is backwards in that we started out in the universe.
Yeah.
And now we're getting to that safe point at the end. Where you used to start with a safe point and build, we're now going from a building platform to a safe point.
And I wonder if that was based similarly to your comment earlier about Leah entering with this massive knowledge of things that you've practiced, rehearsed, tested, all of that sort of stuff. And then you realize you don't know some of the incredible basics that you then fall in love with in terms of traditional French cookery, for instance. Like someone doing a béarnaise sauce this week. Well, yes, it's an incredible base and an incredible sauce, but yes, we would have expected that earlier. How can you make it your own at this point in the competition?
And that also comes back down to feedback, though. And it's the one thing I will say with feedback, and we know, and there'll be somebody out there who will comment on this and go, oh, but you don't see all of it. No, we don't see all of it. But again, we can comment on what we do see. And that's the problem at home, is that, for example, all the way through, they've talked about, I'll use Simon as an example. They've talked about the fact that Simon's plating is amazing and the way what he does with this is amazing and brilliant. And then in the last challenge, they commented that he's just doing bits on a plate. But he's been doing bits on a plate since week 1. And they've praised it. And then suddenly in one challenge, they went, oh, it's just bits on a plate. And you're like, but that's what he's done the whole way through.
Yeah.
And we've had it with a few other challenges where people suddenly went home because they've done this thing all the way through that they were like, that's great.
Yeah.
And then there's a challenge and they do it again and they're like, well, why did you do that? That's stupid.
Yeah, there's definitely a fine line between not wanting to repeat yourself, but also wanting to give the judges what serves you well.
Yes.
And yeah, I think my approach to it, I definitely repeated some elements or techniques, but I tried never to cook the same thing twice. But at the same time, if I'm going to a French restaurant, I will order a niçoise salad, a steak tartare, and a creme brulee, and have that every time. And if you give that to me every time, I'm going to be happy.
Yeah.
So it's sort of.
So
next time you're cooking for me.
Yeah.
Generally, if you're a red curry, green curry person, or a laksa person.
Or you're a laksa person, like somebody next to you.
Yeah. And if that is an area of comfort for you, you're going to be so excited every time.
Yeah.
If you had it every night for a week, on a Sunday night and someone brought you the same thing, you'd be like, oh man, can't I have something different? Well, you just loved it 6 out of 7 times.
You keep telling me it's wonderful.
Yeah. So it is a bit of a fine line of continue giving them what they praise you for, but also be yourself and explore on your own, and know that you've got enough to offer in an experiment or something new, as well as what you do well. So you can have transition food, I think, that honors what you're good at, but also throw a few little spanners in the mix there.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you said probably halfway through this podcast, if not before. Yeah. Because a subsequent, when I can't remember what also jogged my mind about this, is you mentioned that both the professional chefs and people in Masterchef have different experiences, but also knowledge and experiences that are quite unique.
Yes.
And could probably assist each other. So
absolutely.
Now that we've got 11 years of MasterChef contestants having free range in the real world now, what are some of the things that you've seen that excite you, that you've seen, MasterChef contestants go on to do, and, a life's world?
Oh gosh.
I mean, there's Carmen's. I mean, just forget.
I was just talking to Carmen yesterday, actually. Because she's going to come visit baby Jonathan. So she's sort of whilst she loves Measure, she also is she's working in her previous field as well. So she works in both now. But I love that she has taken on a dessert bar. I was a bit sad that she didn't make it into Western Australian Week on television. I thought there might be a bit of a challenge there.
Yeah. She made it into our Western Australian Week, put it that way.
Me too.
She featured in our Western Australian Week. Thank you to mutual friend
and
Robert.
Hers is the best bomb Alaska I have ever had, and it will be
it works
only
too.
Yeah.
I think that has frustrated me, actually. I'm like, why are bomb Alaskas back? Yeah. Why are they everywhere?
That's what frustrated all of us. And put it this way, just again, I mentioned this before, but about Carmen. Carmen is the person who made yuzu and made me order yuzu.
Because it looks.
And you enjoyed it?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I like yuzu. I just thought it was overdone, but the way Carmen did it was brilliant.
Yes, she is one clever cookie, that is for sure. She's very clever with restraint, and maybe that's what sold you. She knows how much to use of things, whereas for me, yuzu, I can't get enough, and I would definitely not sell you on yuzu.
Yeah, but if you're over in Western Australia, just to reiterate that, if you're over in Western Australia, go to Measure, people.
Oh, please. Yes, absolutely.
I cannot recommend it highly enough. It's just...
And now Bumplings and, there's a handful of Western Australia MasterChef people doing lovely things now. But yeah, Measure, I think I got to sample quite a bit when I was there, and it's all good. There's not a bad thing on the menu.
So who's this Bumplings?
That's Brendan Pang from... Yeah, so he's got... I've just gone blank on what the word is, but like a food truck, an old silver style food truck. But yeah, they do dumplings. So that's very exciting. I'm excited for Western Australia in general to be celebrated more for what is just grows naturally, beautifully. Yeah, so it's really good opportunity for people to go visit.
But it's far more important to demonstrate the hallowed turf that is Optus Stadium.
Very random choice, I thought.
Far more vital that we did Optus Stadium. It was what a dedication to Western Australian Week that was. Oh,
truly bizarre.
Oh, it's beautiful. You know who I'm excited to see things from, though, who are former MasterChef contestants?
Who?
Khan. And you know the best place to see that? Mymarketkitchen. Thank you very much.
Or the George on Collins, if he's there most nights.
Or the George on Collins. But for some of us who are in Miscellaneous City and not there, My Market Kitchen is our best shot.
Although I'm going to be down in Melbourne.
You will be
August. And
give him a shout out because he will want to serve you specifically. The Mymarketkitchen crew went there one night and he took us through the whole thing and was an absolute joy, as he is every other day anyway. It was wonderful to be walked through the menu by the creator himself.
Ooh, very nice.
You're getting spoiled in Melbourne, aren't you?
I'm spoiling myself. I bloody deserve it. And I'm
good, as it should be.
Harry Potter and the Cursed Child.
Oh, wicked.
Yeah, I'm also staying at the Stanford Plaza.
Because you have to.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You'll probably they'll say, oh, you need to be upgraded.
Upgrade. It's your chain.
You're one of those.
So My Market Kitchen, first of all, it's bloody awesome. And
I'm so pleased.
I tell you this regularly, but I love it. So
I'm pleased that it's sitting well with, we're getting some lovely feedback from people. The people that I probably am most excited about feedback from is parents photographing their kids watching it and then their kids making what we've made, because those are the people that have the most input as to what the food systems do in the future. So if they're taking control and encouraging their families to eat better, explore more, try new ingredients, cook seasonally, all of those lovely things, I'm really excited for that. So I've just been super thrilled to receive all of the photos of little people watching the show.
Yeah, and I think that your way of incorporating a lot of dietary friendly
I call it inclusive, so no one should miss out. Everybody, there should be something for everybody and a way to make one dish for everybody that's coming over.
You made me point to baked beans, and I don't do that.
But like for me personally, like that word inclusive, when I first spoke to you and you used that word, that really hit a chord with me, because from that moment on, I stopped paying out my friends with keto and stuff and started thinking, okay, what can I bring to our social gathering that includes them in what we're eating, rather than just
I think I really don't want to shame anyone for their choices or their dietary requirements in terms of, it's something that I can't help, and I've been apologizing for it for years. Why? I can't help it. I'm like, no one should have to apologize for what they do or don't like or can or can't eat. But let's see if we can satisfy everyone, make sure that everyone has a good time and has a reasonable amount of nutrient density. It doesn't always have to be that way, but I mean, there's plenty of treats on there. I wish there was a less guilty word than treat, but there's plenty of things there, or sweet things, or
delicious stuff.
Delicious stuff that isn't all, like, not everything about it is nutrient dense, but we do our best for it to serve multiple purposes.
Yeah, well, some things like food is either there to nourish you or it's there to pleasure you. So it's like pleasurable foods that
absolutely, which shouldn't have guilt attached to it, and that's, I guess, what we're trying to partly shift. But it's there's got to be some other words.
And how much fun has it been also to do it with Khan as well? Because it's like,
oh my goodness, he is a hoot. I think
he's hilarious.
We spend most of the day giggling, and then hopefully there's enough to edit together some semblance of a recipe. He is very entertaining, and my face is usually sore at the end of the day because we've been smiling so hard.
And I mean, and I haven't caught up with that reference yet, but I was actually going to ask you about the prevalence of matcha in the show, because
no, there's not a lot of it, but when I use it, I made sure that
Khan does a lot of it.
Actually, he's done more. Yeah, I've only done one. I do one out of my 90 episodes.
Still too much. I need to have a chat to young Khan about that. Trolling, I swear. So
yeah, it's all about you, my love.
It is. It's good to see you've come on board with this idea.
Yeah.
So we've got, obviously, so we're in grand final week, which, I think we're in grand final week.
We'll find out by Monday, Tuesday, I'm sure.
We would. As far as I was concerned, there was only one person we were going to talk to in grand final week, and that was you.
Woohoo!
So exactly, and again, plus kind of owed us for the whole labour thing. So
yeah, it's been 6 weeks.
6 weeks now. You're fine. He'll be ready to be a sous chef in no time, and
he's certainly a good eater. So if that's anything to go by,
we'll see him.
He'll be handling knives in no time, and the next thing you know, like the meal.
Oh yes, on MMK, I've seen him leaning on the bench a little too much in later episodes. I'm like, oh, Jonathan, look at you there.
You were really trying to sort of work that, weren't you? So thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
The podcast. Always an absolute joy to get to have a chat to you.
Anything you want to plug? Mymarketkitchen.
Mymarketkitchen, weekdays, Channel 10, or on 10 Play, catch up.
And
I do love that all the recipes are there as well. So we've got a lot of international audiences and delightful followers, friends, fans across our social media pages that can't access 10 Play. So I'm glad that the recipes are there. So those are internationally available for until some other network takes it on board. Anyone? Any takers?
Anyone pick it up?
Friends in Canada. Just do with the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.
All of our friends in Canada. Would you like to sort of pick this up?
Yeah. While we push for the Great Canadian Baking Show to be in Australia, can you push for Mymarketkitchen to be in Canada?
And it's really good, as I said. It's really good again having you on Mymarketkitchen and seeing a lot of other contestants sort of pushing on and doing really good things with food. I spent part of the day yesterday hanging out with Huda, watching her just.
Oh, we were going to try and connect a couple of weeks back, but she was in Melbourne at the time, and I was in Sydney. I said, no, I live in Sydney like you, so I will. Or miscellaneous city, as the case may be.
Yes, very miscellaneous. It was great when I was trying to tag her yesterday, and I'm like, come down to miscellaneous city. Oh,
just about here, somewhere here.
roughly, vaguely around here, but no. Watching her yesterday just on the spot coming up with all these amazing recipes and getting to eat all of them, including a Middle Eastern inspired Sang Shui Bao prawn, which was an on the spot, what are we going to do? Let's go through some of these ingredients. And it is one of the best things. It is one of the best things I've ever eaten. Mm-hmm. And again, and people like Carmen and all these other people who've been out there, it's really good to see, the food quality from Masters.
It's hard to keep up. There's that much good going on, which is a really fun place to be.
It is. So thank you very much, Elena, for coming on. It's greatly.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
We will be back with potential for 3 episodes in 3 nights, which could kill us. But we'll be back on Sunday night because we're going to do a Sunday night one this week because they're eliminating people and we're going to have too much to talk about if we don't do that.
Yeah,
absolutely. You guys will be exhausted.
Oh, it'll kill us.
How dare they not put it in school holiday time?
I know, it's terrible. I'm actually at work. It's horrible. So Sunday night, tomorrow night, I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Kristie.
And that was Elena, and we'll catch you all later.
Ciao.